Welcome to Puddlecast, where we discuss safety, water, environment, and career development topics. Let's jump in.
All right, well, welcome in, everybody. My name is Nathan Hardebeck. Thanks for coming to this session. I'm sorry about the temperature in here. I don't have control over that. So if you start to nod off, I'll understand. If you need to get up and stretch, go ahead and do that. What we're going to talk about today is a little bit about the what I perceive as a training gap that is ever widening right now. Our municipal operations have some folks that are very skilled at what they're doing, and a lot of them are on their way out the door. They're retiring, and at the same time, new technology, new demands, new policies, new practices are being implemented at the same time, and the upcoming staff, the upcoming employees are having a hard time keeping up with what is, as also keeping pace with where we're going. Okay, and I think that is growing, and how we learn and how we are absorbing information is also changing, and it's causing us to consider our training programs. I'm going to use quite a few factoids, things that are out there in the world to help support this conversation. And what we're seeing is that many folks nowadays value training, and they see that training as part of career development for themselves. They also see it as potential career advancement opportunities, that the more that they know, that the more that they understand, the more valuable they become, and therefore they should be able to receive a higher compensation for that knowledge base. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this from my perspective, and unfortunately for some of you, my perspective is stormwater. Okay, that's how I grew up. My dad got on an airplane with a guy, and they struck up a conversation back in 2000, and he got off the airplane and said, "Nate, figure out what stormwater is, because we're going to start a company." Okay, and the biggest decision we had to make at that point was determining is stormwater one word or two. Okay, and that was really the level of sophistication we were at. What we're talking about in the stormwater industry right now is very sophisticated. We are talking about things at very, very low levels, and we're trying to mimic the natural environment in a very urban environment. So let me give you a little bit of my history for those of you that haven't had to endure me before. When I started in school and when we were going through our K through 12 education, we started with books and lockers. My kids don't have books nor lockers, okay? And it's a new way that they learn. They plug in their pads and they access things via the web. And then when I got into college, I got my first email account. It was pintail2 at universityofwashington.edu or something like that. And you had to get on the AOL dial-up to get in there, right? And my professor started to put things online, and so I stopped going to school because I could start getting the online lectures, okay? And then as we've gone through, and with my career, stormwater has, like I said before, has changed. And I started doing training as sort of a byproduct of doing consulting and support work for municipalities and industry. And that really started in 2002 for me. And about 2006, I became a CECL certified trainer. If you guys know what CECL is. Okay, so that's for erosion control on construction projects. And in about 2019, it was getting to be not just a support thing, but becoming more prevalent. I put about anywhere between 40 and 60,000 miles on my vehicle every year, okay, traveling all over the country doing trainings. And it became a much more significant factor, and we were in the process in 2019 of signing a contract to actually build a training facility. Then COVID, and I'm really glad that fell through, because I would have a building that nobody could go in and have lights that I had to pay for that nobody could be at. But it caused a shift in that investment for me. It caused a shift for how we were going to do this, and it started our training academy as we move forward, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. So there was a need for, as we go forward, I'm not trying to give you Everybody in this room learns differently. And I'm just trying to highlight some of the different ways that are out there. And I'm not trying to tell you one is better than the other. I'm just trying to highlight that if we don't have a robust enough training program and we don't consider these factors, we can have a room full of people like y'all, and you may be falling asleep on me, and you came to this room and you sat in it and I signed something, but you learned nothing. Are you with me in what I'm saying? And when we build training programs that occupy space and people are away from their other opportunities, but they're not going out of that room leaving different, we've failed in our training program. So here's my experience with the world of NPDES, or we're just going to call it stormwater. When stormwater permits started coming out for municipalities in the early 2000s, it was this thing, and somebody got blessed to be the stormwater person. Like, you know how to say things, you know water runs downhill, guess what? You're the person. And immediately there became a divide between that person and their objectives and operations, because operations had to now change the way that they were doing things in the light of bad stuff going down the drain. And so this divide started happening, and then this person that was building this kind of division of the organization kept going to city council and to folks that say, we need more money to do this, we need more money to do this, we need more staff, and it's going to dedicate people to this adventure. And then as regulations start to grow and as new policies start to go and fish become more endangered and new pollutants of concern come on, that division got wider. It got further away from each other. And it became, the NPDES group really became its sort of siloed working environment in a lot of cases. And we had to say things like, we can't clean the building like we've done it anymore. Don't use soap. Can't use hot water. Things like, we need to purchase another sweeper truck because we have to do so many streets, or we have to clean so much of our system. Or we can't use this product anymore because it's creating an issue for stormwater water quality. The challenge with the stormwater is that it rains on everybody. You don't have to be the stormwater person to affect your stormwater permit. The folks that are showing up to City Hall every day, coming into the office and dripping their vehicle over a catch basin affect the permit. The folks that are doing your intersections or are doing projects that are not permitted, but they're doing their maintenance-related activity and they sweep the dirt into the ditch line, are affecting your stormwater permit. And it rains on everybody, and the challenge is that the outcome is at the end of this pipe that everybody has influence over. So how do you bridge this gap between this group who has this focus of we got to keep our entity protected and make sure that water comes out of our jurisdiction clean, and this group of folks over here that have all of this different perspective and they have all of these different needs and demands, and that we've got to have only rain going down the drain. Okay, so that's sort of the scenario that we're looking at. And the challenge is that our policy drivers and the things that are pushing on our industry keep adding more stuff. And I think you're all challenged, and I'm not saying this to, I think you're all familiar with it, is, well, let me come back to this slide right here. What you're familiar with is the fact that you're being asked to do more with less. There are more people. There are more demands. There are more, even your citizenry is putting more demands on you because they're more educated. Okay, what used to be this vague thing, you've been teaching them for the last 10 years that only rain goes down the drain. Why? Because you got a drain sticker on the side of the road, right? And kids are learning this stuff in school, and they're coming home and telling their parents, how did we learn how to recycle as a society? It was taught to the kids. The kids took it home to their parents and said, Dad, the can goes in the blue bucket. That's the way stormwater is being communicated right now. Okay, it's coming up through the kids, and they care about this. And now we have this thing. We also have these other pushes in our entity. We have a lot of folks that get elected for office standing at some type of event saying, we're going to be a green or we're going to be a sustainable city. And they're using these big terms. And those terms are oftentimes you get grant money to help be a sustainable city. You get grant money to build low-impact development features in your site. You build this thing, and then the maintenance department has no idea what it is, or how it's supposed to work, and then they do their own on-site engineering because they couldn't get access to the Vector truck to do the cleaning that was supposed to because there wasn't a cooperation there. This is my favorite one. I've been asked to do a lot of detention pond maintenance as a result of municipal source control inspections. They'll go out to a commercial development, and there'll be an 18-inch diameter cottonwood growing through the middle of it, and they'll probe it, and it's 4 feet of sediment. And I go to that property and I say, hey, where are your as-built drawings? What kind of pond is this, or does it have special features? They say, oh, we don't have those. You should call the city, though, because they have records of that because they approved it. City, do you have the as-built drawings for this pond that you approved at this? No, we light those on fire 7 years, so we don't have that, right? So the challenge is how do we get this infrastructure? How do we do what we're supposed to do with this lack of knowledge or this knowledge that continues to change? So the need is really multiple things. It's backfilling the retiring workforce that has this knowledge base with the pieces of equipment that are out there now. Some of you even may have a Vector truck or a sweeper truck that has somebody's name stenciled on the side of it because that is their baby, right? And it works a certain way, and if you double tap the window, then the engine starts just right, and all those kinds of things. Keeping pace with new regulations and the record keeping. Approximately 27% of U.S. workers quit their jobs in 2023, and it increased the quit rate to by 37% since 2014. Things are changing. Our circumstances are changing. I'll also say this, that we as a society aren't necessarily investing in the trades because trade schools are losing financing. There's not as much of our youth going through trade schools as there has been in the past. That COVID was also a part of that. So as we build more infrastructure, as we put more things in, the demand is going to increase, and we don't have as many of those folks on the back end to help support what's necessary. And why people are avoiding the trade schools: one, societal pressure. Two, we've done away with a lot of the high school shop classes that are out there. We've done a lot of the, gone away from that and gone to a more tech-related thing. A lot of folks don't see trades as a skilled component. They want to do something else. My kids want to make a YouTube video and be millionaires. That's sort of how they think, buddy, this is not going to make millions, right? Doing that on a YouTube. And mostly technology. I'm going to tell you that technology is really pushing, in my industry, in stormwater, and probably in a lot of your other industries, it's pushing things forward. There are a lot of folks and a lot of things that we saw out there today where these pieces of equipment are changing. And the more sophisticated the piece of equipment is, the more you have to be trained up on it, the more specialized you become. And if you are going to buy a piece of equipment with a specialized operator, that operator, there needs to be some type of translation so that if that person gets sick or they're not available to be with you, that you have some people to backfill for you. I just wanted to highlight this, and this is sort of how the policy is starting to change. If you didn't know this, municipalities have a new stormwater permit, and that stormwater permit is starting to put emphasis on some new pollutants of concern: temperature, PFAS, and 6 ppdq. I don't expect everybody in this room, you guys know what 6 ppdq is? Okay, so it's the tire wear chemical. It's almost an instantaneous killer to coho. Coho are really wimpy fish. They don't survive much. And temperature and 6 ppdq are heavy killers of them. So the permits are now asking your municipality to have more trees, shade the ditches, keep the water cooler as it's running through there. Some of you might have gone to the conversation about the challenge of street trees and sidewalks and root systems and all the rest of that. So we have these balances that we're having to deal with. And then we have these new operations or new BMPs. You're going to have to start working with your fire department because you're going to have to check what kind of fire retardant foam they're using because you're going to have to sample for PFAS. Okay, and so those kind of questions, what are we using and how are we using it? And then we have all of this infrastructure that we put in that we engineer and we design and we do it under the purpose, under this grant money or under, because we're trying to be a sustainable city, and yet we have to operate this thing in perpetuity. This stuff has got to work once it's done. And not everybody's trained on that, and not everybody that is doing the maintenance was at the table during the design, and so the design may not be effective for the long-term operations.
Nate touched on a lot of great points on addressing the training gap and its contributors. From a generation of its workers starting to retire, the switch from paper to digital, and how that might have caused some jurisdictions to lose some of the records for projects, as well as loss of funds into trade schools and loss of high school programs in the trades, and how in this industry everything seems to change very quickly.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. Remember, you can always engage with us in our communities or get info from our blog and resource library at cwtacademy.com. That's cwtacademy.com. Follow us on social media to get the latest information and see what our team of instructors are up to. We hope you tune into the next Puddlecast, where we will discuss more water, safety, environmental, and career development topics. Catch you on the next one. Bye.